If someone feels like you have been terrible to them, you need to acknowledge that and figure out why. What's going on, y'all? This is Sean here at Trends Tonight. First and last, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that dingy thing so that you know when new stuff comes up. Normally, I'm on weekdays. You see me posting on Tuesdays. I'm thinking about adding another day to that with a live talk show and this sort of reactions thing that I'm doing tonight. I'm just giving it a shot to see how it works. If we like it, we'll keep doing it. If we don't, then we won't. So let's talk about Tessa Blanchard. So SE Scoops reported that Tessa Blanchard and Daga are close to signing with AEW. If you don't know the story behind what happened to Tessa Blanchard, she is one of the best women's wrestlers on the scene today, and she's only 25 years old, so she has a long time of being awesome ahead of her in the ring. However, that comes with a little bit of baggage. Over the course of the winter 2019 to 2020, she was getting positioned to become the Impact World Champion. Not the women's world champion, mind you, but becoming the first ever woman to win the world championship in Impact. She did end up doing that. However, just before she won it, Black Rose, an independent wrestler with whom she worked, accused her of calling Black Rose a racial slur and spitting in her face, an allegation that Tessa denies. But then additional voices came out as well, accusing Blanchard of bullying in the locker room. And it took her till September of 2020 to really outright acknowledge these things. Now, keep in mind, this was also during the pandemic, and she had dropped the Impact belt by then, because she moved to Mexico, got married to Daga, who is the other person rumored to be going to AEW in this deal if it happens. And the original reporting was like Tessa was holding the title hostage for some reason, but it turned out that wasn't the case at all. They just couldn't come to an agreement on what a good contract would look like for her in the middle of a pandemic where she would have to travel cross-country and do a lot of quarantining and things like that. So, while there are some real problems here, the bigger problem is that Tessa didn't acknowledge them until September of 2020. So a solid 9 months after everything happened. And when she did, she just denied it. I think it was on Instagram she put up, she said essentially that she's not racist. She's never been racist. She doesn't have a history of being racist. And she doesn't have a history of using racist language. And that's it. That's all there is to it. It's not who she is. There's a problem. If someone feels like you have been terrible to them, you need to acknowledge that and figure out why. I know it's difficult because there has been a pandemic and people have been in different countries, but if someone said you were really racist to me and spit in my face, if you want to continue having a career, a public career, and not have that drag around with you wherever you go for the rest of it, you need to tackle it in some way or another. And here's the thing, she may say it's not true. But the problem is it doesn't matter if it's true. It doesn't matter if I believe it. It doesn't matter if you believe it. If somebody could look into that single moment in time with perfect clarity and go, well, it was actually way more complicated than that. It's no longer that way because that's not what the narrative around the story is. And not to get super cliche, but you have to change your own narrative. And the only way you can do that is by taking responsibility for your public perception, which is something that Tessa did not do. She failed to do that, actually. It was the biggest failure in this whole thing. Staying out of the limelight as a former PR person, 100% the right thing to do, but should have come out at the beginning and acknowledged something. Acknowledged, I would like to figure out why people feel this way. And if I did do this, then I will acknowledge culpability, because sometimes you don't know if you're being a bully. I have been said that I talked down to people in the past. I didn't realize it until enough people told me about it that I felt real bad and started looking at myself and self-analyzing, right? You don't always know you're being an idiot. Now, if she spit in someone's face, she knows she's being an idiot and lying about it. But the bottom line here is that when a perception becomes solidified about you, it is not the perception's job to change. It is your job to change the perception. And this is something Tessa Blanchard has failed to do. And now when she signs, if she signs with AEW, it is going to cause a problem for AEW within the internet wrestling community. Now, let's be fair and get some perspective here. The outrage in the internet wrestling community matters to people within the internet wrestling community. You're not going to see people reporting about this. It's not going to be on Time. It's not going to be on, like, E! News or anything like that. It's not that big of a story. It is terrible what happened. If it is true, it is something that should be atoned for if it happened, but it is something that is purely insular to the internet wrestling community and purely it is very easy. So let me illustrate this by telling a story, actually. I once did something incredibly stupid on Twitter and became the internet villain of the day in a different Twitter community entirely. I said some things that were very poorly chosen in a way that allowed people who already didn't like me very much to think that I was being a tokenizing racist. And I had to immediately come back and say, I understand why you feel this way. I see how my language could make you feel like that. Allow me to take reparative action in order to make you feel comfortable around me again, to be a good ally. And my point is that even if she didn't mean whatever it was she said, even if she didn't think whatever it was she said was wrong, the person who was harmed does. And that's the person who you have to work with. It doesn't matter if she apologizes to me. It doesn't matter if she apologizes to the internet wrestling community. It doesn't matter if she apologizes on Twitter. It doesn't matter if she apologizes on Instagram. What matters is she does the right thing to the people who are harmed. Now, this is where it gets tricky and where it can make your brain itch a little bit. Now that this perception already exists, right? Tessa Blanchard is unequivocally a person who says racial slurs. I don't want to go so far as saying a racist. Maybe she is. I don't know. But the perception is she is a person who says racial slurs. Once that reparative action is taken in private, you have to find a way to begin to rebuild your trust with the community. And now it's interesting because Tessa has been going on quite the charm offensive recently on Twitter and Instagram. You've seen her be much more active on both Twitter and Instagram with like workout photos and like, I feel good about the world and so should you, sort of like John Cena feel good quotes and things like that. That's interesting. Now, and that brings a little bit more smoke to the rumor that she may be signing to AEW, right? Because she's being out there and being all positive and showing a bunch of pictures of herself. Another thing that brings a little bit of smoke to that rumor is the fact that Daga just dropped the AAA title, the AAA Latin American title, over the weekend. And so he's no longer a champion there and free of any of those obligations. Interesting. Now, I don't know if she's going to get signed, and this may all become completely irrelevant, but I do know that when you make a huge mistake, even if you don't at first view it as a mistake, and the rest of the world does, if you were to go on Reddit and type in, "Am I the asshole?" they would tell you yes. Why would they tell you yes? Because you were the asshole. That's why. Because you were the one who went out there and refused to acknowledge a problem, refused to acknowledge why something might be a problem, refused to even talk about it for 9 months afterwards, and that is where the real problem in all of this is to me. The real problem is that you done wrong to another member of the wrestling community, another wrestler. And there are many, many wrestlers who have said that this is the case. And that's a big deal. You didn't support Trump. You went after other people in the community, or are alleged to have gone after other people in the community. And I think there's a pretty clear difference there, because there are lots of terrible people in wrestling. We are reminded of it every day. There are lots of bad people in wrestling who we enjoy on TV on a day-to-day basis. The problem is you harmed your coworkers, right? And that's the bad part. And that's what makes, I think, this in a different category of ew than like, oh, I just happen to have terrible ideas about a vaccination or Q or whatever, right? You harmed your coworkers or have been. The thought is that you harmed your coworkers. There is an acknowledgement by many that you were a bully. And so not being able to tackle that in an adult way makes you the asshole. right? So, what happens next? Okay. If she gets signed, part of the rumor is that she might do an angle that's like this redemption arc. And here's AEW, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't you dare do it, AEW. That is the most hollow, emotionally bankrupt thing you could possibly do. The other way to do that, let's talk from a PR expert's, somebody who worked for 15 years in PR. How would you actually handle this? You would have her do interviews. You would have her do an interview with someone like Sean Ross Sapp and Louis Dangor. You would have her do them with people at like Wrestle Talk or Cultaholic or with go on Busted Open Radio. You would have her actually go and actually talk about the things that actually happened with her as a person, not in some angle in front of a camera that's owned by TNT, but in front of a camera that might not be friendly for people who might ask hard questions, and have yourself be prepared to answer those questions, right? In a way that shows that you've learned and acknowledged your mistakes. If you want to move forward, you have to learn, right? Like in the same way that you teach your body to get hard and lose weight, you have to teach your emotional self to get hard and not be a racist. Yeah. Okay. So this was a fun experiment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And Tessa, if you do get signed, I'm sure you're going to be great. But the deal is you got to be good to the people around you. So do that instead. Cool? Cool. All right, this is Sean signing off for Wednesday night. I'm going to go watch Mission Pro Wrestling tonight, and it's going to be awesome. Don't forget to get like, subscribe, and ding the little bell. And I'll see you on Tuesday for Wednesday Radio on North Coast Underground.